For today's lesson, we're going to talk about situation analysis. Situation analysis is similar to the other 4 C's we have learned. It's sort of like taking the information that we've used from the past 3 or 4 lessons and getting something from that. Our goal is to understand how to take all the data we have collected and to get useful information to go forward so we can make changes to improve our business. So quick mini review. It starts out with the SWOT, which we talked about: the strength, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. The SWOT is important to do for any company. It's equally as important to do for yourself. It's one of those things that you should probably be doing to yourself maybe once every year to start to understand where your strengths are, what are your weaknesses, what kind of opportunities are happening, and the threats. It also lets you reflect on your own self so you can understand what changes you should make or you need to make, or things that you feel are strong enough so you can start to continue to work on other areas of yourself to make them better. One of the great things about our Instagram project compared to traditional marketing classes, specifically traditional marketing principles of marketing courses, is that we are going to be learning numbers. I've mentioned this multiple times throughout the semester, but generally whenever you watch or you take a marketing class, you learn only the art side of marketing. We tend to ignore the number side of marketing. The number side of marketing is the fastest growing area of the marketing industry. It's one of those areas that if you understand the marketing numbers and the background of where it comes from, you can do things that most people would never be able to do, or options that people did not have in the past. So we're going to go to the forward slide and we'll come back. So in the past, I used to teach a program that's called the MSBA. It's called the Masters of Science Business Administration. If you click the link, you can go there and see it. It's at the University of Minnesota. It's basically a MBA program that's focused around the analytics of business. And so a few years ago, one of my students from that course went on to a conference, and here's a quote that I actually saw on his personal LinkedIn page, and I contacted him and I thought it was so good that I wanted to share it with my students from then on. So I'm just going to read it to you real quickly. It says, "Last weekend I was fortunate to represent Carlson School of Management at MBA Hackathon 2017 in New York City. This was my first ever analytics hackathon, but I could not have asked for a better place to start. To test myself against some of the most creative analytical minds in the country by competing with students, undergrad to PhD, from 52 other universities across USA and Canada was indeed a great experience. One key takeaway that I wanted to share with anyone who is planning to attend such events. Visualization is super critical. Even if you are not able to build the most optimal model, make sure you create a great story with easy to understand visuals." And so I thought this was really, really, really good. The reason being is that when I taught this course to these students, there was no Instagram activity. It was based purely on what can be said as the art side of marketing. And a lot of them tended to have it sort of a negative attitude towards it because they all wanted to focus on the numbers. The problem is that people are not rational. People do things that don't make sense. Numbers tend to make sense. I always think of it as numbers will get people into the door. Numbers can get your advertisements in front of the right people. But the sale is completed through an actual person. People read the writing, they look at the pictures, and they click sale, they click buy. Things that make no sense. Certain words trigger people to do certain things. It's the same as a salesperson. Some people are really, really good at selling products. Some people are not. The numbers will get them in the door, but at the end of the day, you need people skills and to understand people and the sort of quirks that people have to get them to actually purchase your product. And understanding this is extremely valuable skill. And so that's why you have to have the combination of the analytics side and the art side, or the science and the arts. The perfect combination is roughly obviously a 50-50 or like 40-60. And that is where you become successful. That is why I think the Instagram activity is so valuable to our program, because the analytics that you can see through your account that are available through an Instagram business give you an opportunity to understand where your customers are coming from. Which posts do they view the most? Which ones do they not view? Which ones do they engage with? If one of your posts has multiple impressions and one of them doesn't, compared to its reach, why were people looking at that post multiple times but not your other ones? What certain hashtags bring the most followers or the most impressions? These types of things are valuable to know. But then you have to think about the actual post itself. What is in the post? What kind of filter did you use? What's emphasized in the photo? What about your comment? How does your comment match to your post? And then how does your comment relate to your followers? What do they see from it? What do they not see from it? These types of things. You have to understand both sides of the coin to become a truly successful marketer. So today we're going to talk about the data that we've got to get information. So the key thing to remember is that SWOT does not equal recommendations. SWOT is research. Research is what you need to become a successful marketer, but the most difficult part is how do you take your research and get something of value, something that you can actually act on that will make a difference in your business. But it's really, really difficult to use that in a way that you can implement it so that you can grow your business. So here's an example of what it should look like. Your SWOT is your research. Then you bring it into development. You look for developments. And you think about commercialization or insights. How can you use this to produce insights? So again, the most important thing is collecting good information, good data. Get good data, do your research, understand your SWOT, understand your customers, your company, your competitors, the category. Understand all of that going through your analytics, through observation, through primary and secondary resources, get everything there. But now when you have all of that, you want to look for trends inside of there that you believe can produce quality insights that you can act on to improve your business. Whether you're improving your business 10%, 100%, or 500%. That's up to you. But you need to know that all of the data you have needs to be converted into insights. Here's the situation with insights. People love Krispy Kreme. Myself, I'm a die-hard Krispy Kreme fan. It's my kryptonite. I could eat Krispy Kreme donuts every day, non-stop, until I'm ill. That's not a good thing. If you remember when you were a kid, Krispy Kreme donuts, they were actually in Minnesota, and then they nearly went bankrupt across the entire nation. They were like right on the edge. What caused them to go bankrupt? So you have to think, every time someone does something good, something bad happens. There's always the yin and yang effect. Nothing happens in like a vacuum where it's perfectly clear. There's always a good and there's always a bad. So when Krispy Kreme first came to Minnesota, they only had one store, and it was in Maple Grove. I remember people would travel all across the Twin Cities to drive up there and buy boxes of them. And they'd bring them home, they'd share them with their friends and their neighbors, and everybody would get excited. I remember people didn't want to go up there because you'd have to wait in line for like 1 hour or 2 hours. But yet they still would do it because it was so exciting. Here's the issue. They took that information and thought like, hey, people are driving from the entire Twin Cities, the entire metro area to come and see our Krispy Kreme, to come and get our donuts. What if we bring our donuts to them? Well, the problem is this. How often do you eat donuts? Do you eat donuts every day? Do you even eat a donut every week or every month? When you think about it, most people only eat a few donuts a year. We all know it's sort of like a guilty pleasure. Not many people eat donuts every day or every week or even every month. The beautiful thing when Krispy Kreme only had one store in Minnesota was that you would drive up there one day a year and you would get them, and it was sort of like an event in your life. Like, let's go to Krispy Kreme, and you'd plan it out and you get all excited. You pack your car and you drive all the way across the Twin Cities to wait in line to get your donuts that one time a year or 2 times a year, whatever it is. Very, very, very minimal. It was the idea that you couldn't see much, you couldn't get them, that added the value to them. So Krispy Kreme thought, hey, you know what we should do? Let's put them at every holiday gas station. Let's put them in coffee shops. Let's put them everywhere across the Twin Cities. Well, now the idea that it's something special was completely gone because we could get them. If you can get it every day, you no longer want it. The allure is gone. The specialty is gone. We like the idea that you can't get things, and it's really, really difficult to get them. This sort of like limitedness of it. That's why fancy cars and expensive bags and purses and clothing brands and shoes are really, really special because only a few people can get them. Once you can get them every day, you start to get the mentality that, oh, I'll just get it tomorrow. I'll get it tomorrow. I'll get it the next day. It becomes like Coca-Cola. It's just like, it's there. Whatever. I don't need it. So the reason I'm telling you this story is that you have to remember when someone lowers, another example is when someone lowers their price, what do people believe? A low price equals poor quality. Okay? So these are the things you have to think about whenever you make your insights. You have to think in my insight there's going to be, I'm going to take all my research, I'm going to find an insight, we're going to implement the insight. Something good will happen, but something bad will happen. How do you fix or how do you prepare for that bad thing that's going to happen? If you only prepare for the good side of it, the good effects of it, people will be disappointed. Another example would be Subway stores. Subway has like 20,000 some stores. They have way more stores than a lot of other fast food chains do. So the easy example would say, well, they're struggling, let's close their stores. The problem is if you close their stores, what happens to those employees? What happens to those existing customers that went to those stores that are now closed? They're going to be disappointed in you. They will be unhappy with you. So then they will go on the internet, they will go out, and they will complain, and you potentially lose those customers for the rest of your existing business. You will get negative effects on there. So you always have to think there's always a positive and there's always a negative. Sometimes it's bigger, sometimes it's smaller. The more drastic change you make, oftentimes the more drastic the negative effects could be. So you have to be prepared for that, and you have to have a plan. Insights. Insights include specific problems, challenges, or worries for the organization, specific areas of improvement, specific worthwhile opportunities, or anything you learn that you deem insightful and useful for going forward. It's important to remember that insights do not always mean adding new stuff. Oftentimes, insights can be deleting things, removing things. Maybe you're viewing a restaurant and you notice that it's really slow because of the way the line is set up. Maybe there's a way to cut out a step so people feel more comfortable. It's just more efficient. They don't feel that burden of having to do one extra step. Okay? So you have to think like adding more isn't always better. It's also important to recognize that does the insight fall in line with our mission and our goals and our customers and everything we've done. I keep talking throughout the semester there should be like a waterfall. Do the insights fit inside of that waterfall, or are they more of like a star? If they don't fit inside of the line or the waterfall, they probably should be removed because then you confuse customers. Don't make changes that will confuse customers. Customers don't want to have to think. It needs to flow. So here's a discussion that we're going to do. I believe we'll do in Friday's class. It's a SWOT of a company. The key is this. If you look at the second square or triangle thing, it says, for each insight, tell two things that will change, one good and one bad. How will you account for the negative change? So the key is always being prepared for both sides. To understand that whenever you implement an insight and you try to make your business better, there's always going to be a negative outcome as well. How can you prepare for the negative outcome so that it goes smoothly? It could be something as simple as adding an FAQ page to your website, or just adding a basic information, just explaining yourself, being clear, being transparent, so that people don't feel like, why are these changes happening?